The 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones was a couple of days ago, and that made me inspired to do something related to that movie. So I decided to make some Photoshop compositions. The plan was to make one movie poster type composition, but that plan derailed pretty quickly and I ended up making 3 different posters. One for each character, kind of. You'll see. You'll see what I mean. But yes, in this video I will just shortly go over the process of making these, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get started. So the first one I started is the one that turned into Anakin's poster. It was supposed to be just the one single poster, but yeah, things happened along the way. So I just started with having a bunch of screenshots from Attack of the Clones, and then I just messed around with compositions and I somehow found these. And so it flowed together in a pretty cool way. So having these trees on Naboo kind of flow into the arena in a way. Hello, this is me editing the video, and basically what I'm trying to say here is that the shapes kind of look like they fit together. They create this half circle thing almost, and that's why I thought these 2 pictures looked good together. And then I also took another screenshot just to make a rock frame on top. And then since this one was Anakin's poster, kind of, I decided to include part of his journey to Tatooine, because that's obviously a very important part of his story in Attack of the Clones. And then what I had to do was to start masking stuff, basically cutting stuff out, and then finding ways to blend it together in a natural way. A good trick to use if you want to check the values and make sure that the brightness is matching for all the different pieces you're using is to use a black and white adjustment layer. That way you can really see if there's certain areas that are very dark compared to the rest. I used some other techniques as well, for example where you can define the color of the shadow and highlight, and that way you can color match. Then I also messed around with blending modes and things like that to make sure everything would flow together as well as possible. And then something that I also did was that I added some leaves and rock texture, again just to make these scenes flow together better. And honestly the biggest struggle with this one was getting the rock frame to look right. First I shaded it wrong and then I had to go back and try to fix it, but I think adding the rock texture really helped out and I think it looks alright in the end. And then actually I even added a color gradient on top of this one. And here we have the final piece, and I'm not really sure what to think about this one. It has some cool elements, but it does feel a bit clunky in some parts. But yeah, I think it's overall pretty cool. And then next up we have the Obi-Wan poster. In this one I actually use his face as well, and this is the screenshot that basically inspired the rest of it. And the planets just looked really cool, and of course I had to include a Slave One as well. And yeah, I know Obi-Wan wasn't on Tatooine, but whatever, I just needed some planet and it just looked cool. Because Obi-Wan's story in Attack of the Clones is much about finding out about the clones and things like that, I think having the Slave One being part of this is kind of important. And I don't have any footage of coming up with the composition for this one, I just put things where they are. It wasn't really a long process at all, it kind of was very obvious where I should put all of these elements. And the process of this one was pretty simple, just masking stuff out and that's pretty much it. It was really hard to make Obi-Wan look good since the quality of the screenshot was not the greatest and it was a bit of a dark shot compared to the rest of the elements. I was also thinking about what I should do with these light spots. Ended up removing most of them, but I think it looks alright. I think this one could have been really cool, but Obi-Wan just looks really crusty and that's kind of bothering me a lot. I guess if I put some sort of filter on it, maybe it would look better, but overall it's not too bad. I like the vibe, I like the aesthetic, but crusty Obi-Wan kind of ruins it. And then last but not least we have the Padmé poster. And initially I also wanted to include Padmé's face in this one, but then the plan changed and I ended up making something similar to what I did for the Anakin one. And for this one I chose pictures that are important to Padmé's story in Attack of the Clones. 2 of them are from Naboo and 1 is from Coruscant. I could have used something from Geonosis as well, I guess, or Tatooine. I don't know, but these ones just looked good together. This one was really easy to make, and the biggest struggle was to choose which Coruscant picture to use. I had a night one and a daylight one. I initially was going to go with the night one, but I decided against that and went with the daylight one because I think the overall picture looked nicer. It has more of a consistent look. And when it came to blending the scenes together, I used some cloud overlays to make the transition nicer. I changed the shadows and highlights so that the clouds would blend together better. And I think I accomplished the blending of these two scenes pretty well. And then I just left a pretty sharp edge between the waterfalls and Coruscant. But I think it does kind of work. Then I also changed the perspective of the Coruscant shot a bit so that it would match the waterfalls. But other than that, this one was pretty simple to make. And the last thing I did was that I just did some basic stuff in Lightroom, adding color grades and just overall fixing stuff up. And here we have the final results. I don't know if I should call these posters or pictures or just compositions, because they're not really posters, they're just compositions. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Just compositions. I've stared at these pictures for so long I'm not even sure if I like them anymore. But I would say my favorite is probably the Padmé one, so the last one. I just feel like that's the most visually pleasing one, even though it's really not my aesthetic at all. But yeah, there's something I like about that one. And if you want to, I would also love to know which one you like the most out of these three, or which one you hate the least. Now, depending on what you think about them. But now I think you should go and watch this video right here if you want to see some more Star Wars photoshopping. Why do I always gotta do the thumbs up? It's so...